Hello my fellow car modelers, and how are you doing today? I am sure that you all have noticed that over the past few weeks there was a particular series that I had been working on over the past couple of years, an adventure in building a model car, where we were building the Monogram 66 Malibu Flip Nose. If you are watching this, obviously I have returned the series, and each episode is now going to have this little foreword in it, explaining why it was gone and why I'm doing the series, and I'm going to bring it back. The reason why is that I don't think many of you understood why I was doing that series and what the purpose of this channel is. When I started this channel, I did not want to be like all the others. Not saying that they're bad. I wanted to do something different. I was not going to be a build channel. I will do builds, but I'm not going to be a build channel. I wanted to be a model car hobby information channel and tip channel. So the whole idea, as was stated in the very first episode of An Adventure of Building a Model Car, was the reason behind the series was to just have a kit that I would work on through time to use as doing tips. So if you look at the episodes, they're not so much about building that particular model. It's about showing you tips in building a model car. My way of building a model car. It will not be something that I work on all the time. I will do other episodes on other subjects, and I will build other models. I am not continually working on this 66 Malibu. This brought some criticism and misunderstandings, where I would literally have people so enraged that I wasn't constantly working on it and wanting the rest of this series to continue on, that they would threaten to write the channel off and unsubscribe. Well, I'm going to tell you this, that's not a threat that's going to shake me up. If you want to unsubscribe, by all means do. I'm going to continue on. That is why I pulled the series. I'm bringing it back for all of you. It is going to continue on, and I will work on episodes as I see fit. Could take a couple of years before it's all done, and when it's all done, you're going to have a nice whole play set to watch from beginning to end. But if you're following it and anticipating the next episode and you're trying to build the same car along with me, I'm sorry. That's not what its intentions were. I'm not going to do it all the time. I want to do it in my time as I see fit. I have other things I want to do. Please respect that. It's not about the build of this particular car. It is about the tips and information that I'm giving you. That was my intention. Now you know. Let's continue on and let's enjoy an adventure in building a model car. Hope you enjoy it. Well, hello my fellow car modelers, how you doing today? Hey, we're getting back on to another adventure in building a model car episode. Let's just, let's just do this. It's been a while. I'm ready to get going on this. I'm gonna do the whole rear suspension and everything. Get that all into that chassis, and let's keep building this thing, all right? Let's go, let's happen. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen big, real big. Alright, so we're going to get on it, and let's see. Got a few things to go over before we start putting together the rear suspension and get everything painted. I noticed a couple things, being that this was an open kit. Originally, this model had a tab that was on the rear end right here that came up and went into this slot right here, and what that did was it centered the rear end and set the ride height. If you can see right there, it would set the ride height and also keep it stable on account of these things are all kind of flimsy here, and if you don't have that, that rear end's going to be really flexible and breakable and fragile. That's probably the best word, fragile. Let's say fragile. When we're trying to set the model up and put it on the tables, moving and transporting, and it's going to be really flimsy. So I'm going to have to make something here, do some improvising, but I kind of want to like it not be that seam, because that's not true to a real car. Wouldn't have a solid piece of bar sticking up and attached to the rear end, making it a rigid rear end and no suspension whatsoever. I'm gonna rummage around and maybe find like a little piece of clear that I can get it to the right size. Maybe we'll get to that after we do everything else. What we're gonna first do is we're gonna get these parts painted and weathered, and I got a pretty good idea. I'm pretty much gonna do the same thing as I did with this underside here. Is I'm gonna paint it NATO black and then just start doing a little bit of weathering and everything. But I think on these parts, because they're going to be, you know, added later on to the car, because they were aftermarket parts or fabricated pieces, we'll probably paint these just a semi-gloss black, and then we will do a little weathering to them, but not make them as bad as the rear end and, whoa, sent that flying, and the chassis, because obviously they would have been put on there afterwards and removed and adjusted and all that, so we want to show that. And also it'll add a little bit of contrast to the underside of the car. So we'll get working on this. Oh, and one more thing. Another thing that I found, because this had been a gone through kit before I bought it, is the wheel backs and spacers and everything for the wheels were missing. So I'm gonna have to improvise on here again, and I went rummaging through my parts box and I came up with these right here. They fit the tires I'm using. They kind of look like drum brakes in the back, and the hole where this would fit on here is a little bit small, so I can size that to where it fits nice and snug. The original designs, how they had it, is they had a really big hole in the backing plate and then a little bushing like that went in there. It's so that the wheels would roll, and I don't like having my wheels roll, so this is going to end up working out a lot better, because when you have rolling wheels, they're wobbly, and I don't like my models to roll on account of they could roll off the table and smash into a gajillion pieces. I hate that. I've already kind of started prepping it, getting rid of the parting lines. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all the parting lines on here and on the springs, and then we're going to start painting them. So let's get removing those parting lines, and we've done that a ton of times, so I'm going to just go ahead and remove those off camera, and we'll get moving into getting it painted. Okay, so we're going to start shooting the rear end here with some NATO black. Let's get this going here. Just a quick pass over. Get the color on there. Again, why, if you remember from doing the underside of the chassis, we go with NATO black because it has kind of that, I don't know, oxide black look, or kind of aged black. It just looks a little better than having just regular flat black on there. It's like, you know, and when we start to put all the dirt and the rust on there, it's going to look like, yeah, this was at one time black, and then it just got all, you know, road grime and dirt. So NATO black is like really the best possible look for, you know, aged black paint. So we got that there. We're going to go ahead and hit this portion of the ladder bars, because this part is actually technically welded to the rear end. So that's a part of the rear end, and then these get bolted on. And we're kind of going to do those more into maybe a semi-gloss black. Get this other one hit. Just putting a little color on them. Let's take a look. These are like already dried, so let's look at it. And that's kind of our color right there. Kind of see that's almost like a really, really dark grayish, kind of dirty color. I like it. It worked really good for the underside of the car. I think it's going to work good for that. And let's go ahead and put a little bit of semi-gloss black on a couple of the other parts. Okay, so got some semi-gloss black in the airbrush here, and we're going to go ahead and kind of hit this part of the ladder bar. And again, because this is not going to be a perfect, beautifully painted machine and all that, and I'm not getting real critical with getting the paint. But you can see what I'm talking about with contrast. You can see on there how there's just a bit of a different contrast now between the NATO black and the semi-gloss. It'll just make it look like they're separate parts, just to add to the realism. We'll go ahead and hit this one. Just a little bit of coverage on there. I'm just going to hit this portion of this wishbone here. This is like the third link of the 3-link suspension that we've got. There. Just get it covered real nicely. Next we have the springs. Let's go ahead and just put some color on these. Actually kind of would have liked to have gone with flat black, but since it's just this part, semi-gloss will do. Maybe we'll flatten them up, we'll see. Because what I eventually want to do with these is I just want kind of the cylinder portion to be all black, and then we'll go back with some other colors and stuff and just do the springs, and we don't want it to look like there's anything in between. I don't know how it'll look. It's always difficult with these molded springs to make them look like springs, so we try to create an optical illusion with some depth and different colorings of the raised portion. So we'll play around with that. But that's it for getting some black onto these parts here, and we're going to now start doing the assembly and the weathering. So now I'm going to take some of my Model Masters Metalizer lacquer. I'm taking the steel, the rod ends, we're just going to hit them a little here just to give ourselves an interesting look. I'm going to try to not get it onto the surfaces we want to continue to stay black. I am using kind of it's a 5.0. Should be using a smaller brush, but it's what I got right now. This is for steady hand work. Get it all up there. I sure do like this Metalizer paint from Testers. I'm not a big Testers fan, but this Metalizer paint I just love. But it seems like they don't make it anymore, which is kind of a bummer. But I'm going to start messing around with some other Metalizer paints I've seen that have been put out by, I think, AZLeo and maybe MIG. We'll try those out later on another video. Right now I've got so many of these Metalizers, that's what I'm using. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm kind of being a little foolish here. I think I'm going to go with a smaller brush. Let's see what I got in the arsenal. Okay, here you can see I've got a much thinner brush. See that? It is, I'm using Model Master 3.0 brush. Go ahead and something I do to try to keep myself steady is I kind of lean my hands against, or you know, a finger and a finger. I just try to keep it steady. It works for me. If you go a little over, you know, you can always touch up with some black paint. Beautiful thing about this is we're going to be kind of weathering all this so you can hide a multitude of sins with your weathering. And we're going to do happy little joints. What do you guys think? How's it looking? It takes a steady hand. That's why it's kind of nice to talk nice and soft about it. and have happy thoughts when you're doing happy little hind joints detail painting. It's soothing, because we do this to be calm in life. That's the wonderfulness of model building. Bam! Let that dry. And we have to get the other end too, but we're going to go ahead and do these. Now, we've gone over before in other videos this metalizer paint. I'm sure some of you who haven't seen my videos on metalizers, I did in the transmission video, is yes, I do. I brush paint with these, and even though they say airbrush only, actually with them being really thin like that, it really makes it easy to hand brush. It tends to flow really nice and kind of self-even, and you don't see the brush strokes. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah. I found some brass. We're going to go ahead and give this a shot of Ruski here. It's really, really thin. Need to find something to stir it with. And just a little touch across there, and yeah, I think it brings it to life. And we'll get the head of the bolt right there. There we go. I don't know if you can tell so much, but yeah, just a little bit of difference. I really love realism, and Dirty Filthy is realism. Even when the cars are really clean, there's always going to be some spots, or if you want to do a total show car. But I've never been a show car kind of fan. I kind of like that lived-in look. I like the average Joe hot rodder that kind of builds something in their backyard and they work with what they got. Those are always the cars that fascinate me, and it's usually always the cars that I can build in real life. We got everything kind of looking nice. I like how it looks. I got the wheel backs that were from the parts box. Not sure what kind of kit they came from, but I have to do some improvising, but these are actually going to work out better because the hole is smaller than the peg here. It was a hard time finding one that would either fit this peg or find one a little smaller so I could drill out. I want to drill it out a little bit, but we don't want to drill it out, you know, too much. So I'm going to look through my little box here of drill bits, and I'm going to try to find one that's approximately the same size as this peg. And that looks real close right there. Just my little pin vise, I'll rig that up. Get that out of the way. And we're just going to drill into it. There we go. Let's see if that opened it up enough to make it fit nicely. It's kind of snug, which is okay. And it kind of goes on there, and you know what? It's so tight that I don't even think I'm going to glue it right now because I don't know. I got some parts that didn't get quite painted right here. I'll just tip them to the top so that you don't notice it so much, and I'll probably go in there and do some rusting anyway, so I'm not worried about getting the paint on there. And there we go. We've got that. Do a little test here. There's the tire that'll go on, and that works out just fine for me. So I think we'll go in that direction with that, and that works just totally fine. It's going to be nice and solid. I'm going to go ahead and do that little trick that I did on the chassis when I got the Natal Black put on there, and just kind of go over all the raised parts with just a little bit of Kleenex here or toilet paper, just to kind of buff and shine up all the edges to just give that contrast and 3D look. It just kind of helps it out. There we go. It's very subtle, but you know, it'll turn out looking really good that way. So let's start applying some of the rust colors and weathering colors. Alright, so I'm going to just take some streaking rust effects here, and let's see, just take my little rip sponge, if you remember, taking a piece of packing sponge like that, tearing a piece off, having the jagged ends, just going to dip it a little into the cap here, just get a little bit of that rust on there, and I'm going to start doing my chipping effects on everything. It's like that. Oh. I just want a few little chips and whatnot on the edges, like the paints come off and the rust starts showing through. The top of it's going to be a lot. I'm actually going to rust up a lot, but so we're just going to just kind of got some globs on there. I want to kind of smooth out a bit. There we go. I think I'm going to mix up some Tamiya paint for a little bit different colored rusts. I've got some Tamiya colors I'm going to play with here to make some rusts. I'm going to put my little mixing palette right here. There's a couple pieces of tape. I like to do that. Let's mix all these up. I've got some flat yellow, some NATO brown I've been using. That looks really good for doing some rusts. I'm going to first actually kind of mix up a concoction here with the red and the yellow. Do a little bit of dabbing there. Take a little bit of red, do a little dab in there. Just kind of mix it up and create a sort of an orange. We'll try to take some of this NATO brown here and toss a little in there, and hopefully we can get a little bit of an orangish rust color. Just take a little at a time. Just create a bit of a different color rust, kind of an orangish rust. Play with the colors like that. Let me move that yellow over there, and let's go ahead, take our rear end, dab a little bit of this up, and just start plopping some of this on here, just creating some rust chips on everything. And remember, this is the bottom of the car, the bottom of the rear end. When you flip it over, that's what's going to be showing. So that's why I'm concentrating on this end. And we're just going to dab it up like we did on the chassis, just creating some different chips. I'm using the Tamiya thinner I'm putting right there to kind of get all in there and bring this, starting to kind of dry, so I'm kind of bringing it back to life a bit, make it a little more liquidy. Tap it, and then we're getting, there we go. It's nice with this sponge because it just kind of puts chips in. See how that works out? We'll get some all around here. Definitely get on all the edges, because you know how edges are. That's the first place the paint vanishes, is on edges. There, I think we've got some good chipping effect on there. Now we're going to move into doing more rust effects on the top, getting it real rusty looking. We're going to start using the streaking rust. I'm going to be using this because now we're dealing with enamels. I'm going to take my enamel thinner, let's put a little in the cap, and what we're going to do is let's take the rear end here, and we're on the top, and we're going to just kind of coat everything with the enamel thinner just on the top. And then I'm going to take a brush and kind of get into there and just start dabbing around. Let that all kind of streak through on the top. Again, we're making the top, you know, really rusty, because that's usually where like all the grime and everything would collect, and then it'll kind of run down on there. We're not going to really, we'll just hit a few areas here. Just do a little bit with it, really kind of thin down a lot. And we'll let that dry. That'll dry and look very rusted and gooped up. And then we can even start hitting it with a little bit of the dark streaking grime. This is still a little wet, so I'm just going to take some of the streaking grime and do a little bit of dabs here and there on some of the rust that I put down on there. Just going to dab a little here and there. Just kind of let it streak down. And I'm going to put some around here, because that is going to give me kind of like gear oil seepage. So that should do that. And we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to start hitting it with some pigments and building up the caked on rust and grime and stuff. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to mix up a little bit of a rust pigment, kind of a more orangish rust pigment. Here, let me put that right there. And I'm going to start with putting some of the acrylic thinner in, taking a bit, just throwing it in a little mixing plate. Then I'm going to take some of this AZLeo pigments. You saw me use this in on the chassis there. See how it's a powder? Remember that? I'll just take my X-Acto knife and take some of this powder and drop it in there. We're going to mix up and make kind of a paste to do some blopping around. Just mix it all up. I kind of want it to be a little soupy. Can always add more pigment if I want. So I'm going to do a little more of the chipping with this. Just a little bit. So I'm going to hit the edges, and I'm going to just do a little bit more chipping with the different color. You know, I'm going to put some more orangish type of a rust on there, and we can hit some areas. There we go. Now let's go ahead and we'll take this brush that's a little bit of a kind of a wide, a little bit coarser brush. We'll get a little bit on there, and then we can start hitting some areas that we want to have kind of heavy. You get a little bit too much on there, just kind of wipe it. I'm kind of like not liking that, because I feel like I put a little too much on there. This is the top, so the top, of course, we want it to be a little more rustier, but I don't want it to be all orange up there. There's always ways to fix that. And then on the bottom, we'll just dab a little bit. Mainly wanted to get up there. And then what we can do is, I've got some different levels of rust, you know, the little bit different color palettes. I can't think of the word, sorry. I'm going to take a little bit here and just make a little bit more of a muddier rust here. This is a little bit darker orange than the last one. And now we can take this, and I can kind of use it, dab a little here, just to get it caked into some of these areas and kind of calm down some of the overuse I did. Which actually, with it drying, it's not looking too bad. Again, we're wanting the top to look a little more caked up, because it never gets hit with any water, or if anybody went underneath the car to wash it. The bottom is always a little bit cleaner. Kind of, you can like flick it around and kind of knock some of it off of the already blacked areas. See how it's caked on? You just kind of take a little bit here. Just flicking it around, just trying to, you know, just give it that very old used look. Just flicking it around. What do you think? Even if you do a couple of little flicks and see what happens. It could be great, it could turn it into total garbage. But there's so much detail on this Dana 60 that, you know, you get the opportunity to really show off some neat little detail on them, like right here on Dana 60, you see these two kind of holes and these raised areas, and that's where they would kind of put a spot weld in when they'd set the tubes into the center section here and hold it in place. And that kind of brings it up. And let's take the springs here and just lightly see what happens. I could blow these straight to garbage here, or let's just see what happens. Can you do that? I don't know. What do you say? Think that'll work? We're just having fun here. You barely you start to get close to it, and you start to just touch the edge there, and it's just grazing across the raised detail of the springs and kind of caking up on there. And just there you can see the springs. We're going to go with that look. We're going to go ahead. Remember, we wanted to make these not so awesome. I think what we'll do is we're going to take our sponge again. Let's do some chipping effects. Is take some different colors and just go ahead and play around with it. You know, yeah, you can do too much, but you can always go back. Even like come back with some black and touch it, and that kind of will calm down some of the overdone that you might think you have. Then what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and glue them all on there. And then when it's all on, if you see that you want to go back and fix a few things, you can. Oh, wait a second. We got one other thing to do. I totally forgot. The rear end cover. I'm going to go ahead and hit the edge areas with this glue, and we'll plop this sucker right on there. There we go. We got ourselves our cover. Goes on there nice and flat. I was going to take black panel liner, but I think I'm going to take brown panel liner. The brown, it'll give it that kind of rust and dirt look that kind of flies all over the place. Let's just see how this will look. It'll kind of calm the whole deal off, just touching areas. Let's try doing some of the black panel liner and see what happens. Yeah, ultimately, old black panel liner on chrome always works, doesn't it? I'm going to put a big blob on the top and let it run all down everything. At the bottom, dab up a little of the extra. We'll let that sit. That'll chill it out. You can already see, look out from the distance here, you can see how it just kind of livens it up, and you can see every raised portion, the bolts, everything. I think that's going to be really good. And then, you know, while it's sitting there, I'm going to have a little fun. What the heck? I don't think you ever can ruin these. Just dab a piece of that on there. A little bit of the brown, add in there. Who cares? It's grunged. We want it to be grunged. Let's go with some of the streaking grime, because that is fun. Do some streaking grime on there. That's kind of interesting. Ooh, that's giving it kind of a weird look. I like it. Just hitch some of the edges there. I think that's going to do the job. It even has that gear oil look. Oh boy, that reminds me. I'm going to get under here. This is the bottom. Let's do a collection of gear oil. This stuff, it kind of looks like gear oil. It has that greenish tint. So I'm going to blob some right here, and I'm going to blob some here, like we had a pinion seal kind of leak in. That's kind of cool. Yeah, you play around, you find some neat stuff. There we go. I got an idea. Let's play. Take the end. This is a brush that doesn't have a brush on it anymore. I'm just going to take some of the kind of pasty powder right there. Let's clump it on there. Look at that. Let's get it all kind of clumped up on there. That can give kind of a neat effect there. Taking, you know, it gives you your rust and your grime all mixed together. Yeah, okay. I'm okay with all that. I like the looks of that. That's looking pretty cool, actually. So you just keep on putting layers on, and it's kind of interesting what you come up with. take a little bit of streak and grime, add it into some areas. I'll take some of my enamel thinner, and I'm just going to let some enamel thinner just naturally run down, kind of streaking some of that stuff. Now, I think that's where we're going with it. I think I'm going to let everything dry, and then we're going to start to assemble it. Got our springs. The springs pretty much kind of odd. The instructions say glue the springs onto the rear end first, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to first, the springs go onto this pad, the pads right here. So I'm going to scrape them off, get rid of the crud that we just put on there and the paint, bring it to the plastic. The springs here, and do the same. I'm just gonna, I hate holding these because I don't want to, they're a bit tough to deal with because I don't want to knock all the paint off of them. I gotta be honest, I haven't been real impressed with Tamiya's quick setting. It's really not doing for me what I had hoped. Like the way I like, you know, sometimes I like to have fast action. It's really not the, well, look at that. Maybe it will work. Let's put the other one on there and see what happens. When you use this stuff though, what I like about it over the CA glue is that it actually fuses the plastics together. Wow, that actually did kind of quick set for me. I might be alright with this. So we're going to let that set up for a little bit. I'm just going to stick them right here. This quick setting up fast enough to where, you know, it's holding everything together, but it's not like totally on there to where I can't move it around. Once it gets kind of set, then you can start moving stuff around and making sure that you're all square and everything's right. Use the tweezers and see if we can line all this stuff up. Ooh, I think we got something there. There we go. What do you think? We need some shocks. I gotta find some shocks because I don't think I have the shocks that came in the kit, but I'm gonna look around. Well, we've got to put some shocks in there, but I think we have ourselves a pretty cool looking lifted up rear end there. And yeah, I think I like how everything stands out, that this was bolted on later on. It's not as cruddy or dirty or old. So I might do a little bit of hitting it here and there with some, I got some other different colors of you know, street grime and, you know, dust and things like that. That'll kind of blend it all in together. We'll do that when the whole chassis is done. I'm going to let that sit like that. Again, remember, this is not glued to the chassis yet. I'm going to let this stuff sit. I just kind of hope it won't be so flimsy. Alrighty, so it's dried up pretty good. It's pretty solid. It seems pretty solid. I'm looking through the instruction, come to realize this kit didn't come with rear shocks. I don't know. You know what? We might not even do shocks. Okay, so everything's all dried. It seems to be pretty sturdy. I think I still want to figure out a way to make it, once it's in the car, make it a little more sturdy. I'll rig something up a little later. But we've got basically our whole piece, whole unit, the whole rear end unit's all together. All one nice unit here. Whammo. Look at that. That's beautiful. I'm going to glue this into place. And we're going to call this baby done. For this part, I'm going to go ahead and just use the extra thin. It's not the fast stuff. I'm not worried about it, you know, going fast. Pretty much got that. I am going to kind of get some of the paint out of the hole here. where these all go. Dab our glue on all the pickup points. Put a whole bunch on there, whole bunch on there, a little more. And we are going to set this into place. Put the spring areas in first, and then where the ladder bars go, I think we got it all in there. There we go. We got it all set. There it is. Let's get a close look. What do you say? Like that? Let me know what you think. You got any ideas? Anything else we could do with that rear end? I think we're set. Yeah, it already seems to be glued in. Alright. So there you go. There it is. There's another episode down. So there it is. It's all glued onto the chassis. It seems to be pretty sturdy, so I'm pretty pleased with how it looks. I might go over a few little touches here and there as we're building the model. Maybe add a little detail, dirt, grime, or whatever later on. But we'll see as we get this all together. But there, the rear end's all together. We're heading into the next direction of, I don't know, maybe we'll do the interior next. We got to get the front end all put together. Start getting that all together. Once we get the interior in, the front end pieces all together, that's all set, painted, all set in place, maybe the engine in, then we'll work on the body. I like to always wait till the end to do the body. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really appreciate your patience and I appreciate your support, and we're moving along. We're in the new place. We're having a great time. Here we're busting out some videos, so I hope you're all happy. I know I am, so be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. Check out our Teespring. We got shirts and stuff on there. Support Model Car Hobby headquarters. Help me keep this thing rolling even farther. Let's take this way into the future. So just remember, this is me, Luka Cee. Keep gluing those fingers together. Keep cutting that styrene, and we will see you in the next video. Because I haven't been having really good luck with it, but now it seems to be doing it. And what if this is what's happened? What Sorry, I got all excited. I'm gonna mix up a little more of a okay, I'm gonna start again. This is the or whatever you call that wheel back space plate thing job. We just want to have happy little hind joints. No angry ones. There's no need to have anger in model car building. Just keeping it rolling. Just keeping it rolling. We don't want to put this in the video because I look like a fool, or sound like a fool, because you can't see me. With their characteristics as being lacquer and very, very thin. That was my phone. That wasn't your phone. Way around and just... What the heck was that? Special effects with the mouth. Well, hello my fellow car model. Now let's do it. Woo!